we have seen the fundamentals and the basic concepts in reliability and the reliability engineering, and we know why the quantification is necessary, because it is connected with the risk, safety, life cycle costs, operating costs. So operating costs and risk as well, and therefore a quantification is necessary, and more so in the case of power systems. So we move on to power system reliability. We discuss only relevant mathematics that is needed for power system reliability, and some summary of the concepts that probably we have already discussed, which is relevant to power system reliability. The earlier presentation was generic in terms of the fundamentals, concepts, and the practical implications of reliability and reliability engineering. Now this is in a specific context of power system reliability. Now, the principal reference textbook, of course, there are a large number of books, there is no doubt about it, but some good ones, where you can find uh, easy examples to understand and explained with in great detail with respect to certain concepts and ideas. I found Roy Billington's book and Indrani book. These two books are good. There are some other books as well, but I would primarily refer and and advise that you can look into these two textbooks. They are great books. Reliability Evaluation of Power Systems by Allen and Billington, and the other is Reliability Modeling in Electric Power Systems, John Wiley. First is a Springer publication. This is by Indrani, and so most of the material is basically in a way referred from these textbooks, and this is more for the purpose of explanation of concepts and fundamentals in power system reliability. So first, a few general things like reliability. We have seen a very comprehensive level of comprehensive definition of reliability, the various conditional parameters with respect to age, with respect to environmental conditions, with respect to, various other factors as well. So, but in short, if I have to say what is reliability, probability that the entity experiences no failures under given conditions for a given time interval. So for a mission time, the probability of success is what is reliability. And the availability that an entity is operating under given conditions at a given instant of time. So operational readiness, availability for use, availability when the demand is there. When the demand is there, it should be available in a operationally ready condition. That is what is availability. And correctness and continuity of use is reliability. Once it is available, you can use it. And so when it starts operating, it should not fail. So that is reliability. So on demand, it should be available to be used, and when you start using it, it should continue operation for the length of time for which it is intended. So that's reliability and availability. So we'll basically look at certain other specifics. At the moment, we can just gloss over it. Now, the performance indices with respect to reliability, availability, the ones which are typically used is mean time between failure. When the system is maintainable, of course, when you say operationally ready, that means it is available. So even though it may have been down, then it is repaired, restored, and brought into operational condition and ready for the next mission. So time between one failure to another failure. First failure, when a failure happens, it is repaired, and then it is brought to use, and then it continues to operate for some time, and then it fails. So the average time between failure, average operating time between failure is mean time between failure. So obviously, it implies that there is, when it starts to be used, it can run for some time till it fails. That's what is mean time to failure. And then over and above, it would take time to repair it or restore it. So that's mean time to repair. So sum of the mean time to failure and mean time to restore, replace, or repair is mean time between failure. But typically the time to repair is very small compared to the mean time to failure. Repairs can happen once in 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year. And mean time to failure is the operational time, so it operates for a fairly long period of time. So typically what happens is that mean time to failure, mean time to failure is approximately approximated equal to the mean time between failure. But the two are not identical, because mean time to failure plus mean time to repair is mean time between failure. Because the mean time to repair is very small compared to mean time to failure. And of course, also it implies compared to mean time between failure. So if you take the exponential, negative exponential time to failure distribution, then at operating time is equal to MTBF, 63% of the population has failed. Okay, I mean e to the power minus lambda t, if you recall. So lambda is 1 by MTTF. So if you substitute the operating time t equal to MTTF or MTBF, then it becomes lambda e to the power minus 1, which is 63% of the 0.63 approximately. So that's 63% of the population. So mean time to recover is the average time to restore or recover, or mean time to repair. The reliability rates or the reliability indices, performance indices, which relate to these parameters like MTBF and MTTR, are essentially the failure rate and the recovery rate. The failure rate, you can say, is the reciprocal of the MTBF. The recovery rate or the restoration rate is the inverse of MTTR. So mu is the typical notation which is used for restoration, which is the inverse of MTTR, and lambda, which is the inverse of MTBF. So these are some basics that you should know, and then I will move on to what is known as the Markov model. Now, typically in a power supply system, if you want to model the reliability, then you need to know the various states of the system. Unlike most of the systems that we have thought of earlier, it could exist in two different states. Either they were working or non-working. And so it doesn't lead to much complexity in terms of modeling. But in power supply systems are fairly complex systems. There are different kinds of systems like generation systems, transmission, distribution, and there could be various, they could exist in various states. There could be outages of various units. So there can be multiple possibilities of generating states. You could have 100 megawatt, 60 megawatt, 80 megawatt, 40 megawatt, 20 megawatt, or 0 megawatt. Likewise, you have transmission lines. So combination of these lines could be out for one reason or the other. And then you have distribution systems. So it would ultimately lead to a very complex system. So with multiple states, modeling the reliability of systems, complex systems which can have multiple states, and which can also have combinations, for example, with various possibilities of loads. They can be peak load, they could be low load, they could be high load. So all kinds of combinations can exist. So you could have states where there is a certain generating capacity, then there is a certain load, or there is a certain margin. So too many states, and therefore trying to model the reliability where the states are too many is not very easy. And for that, we use what is known as the Markov model. So in this model, what we do is we represent the different resident states of the system. The states of the system, the states in which the system can exist, and the transitions between the various states. You have a state in which there is 60 megawatt and 20 megawatt is down and it is under some kind of repair or recovery. And when it recovers, then the 60 would become 80. because 20 unit is now up, and therefore you have now a state of the system which is 80. So likewise, transitions are happening. Transitions due to failure in which units can be down, lines can be down, or combinations of loads can be there, and uh, transitions in which units are recovering. So recovery and failure lead to multiple states. So different states of the system and transitions between different states. So from one state to another state, you have to know the various states of the system, and therefore, if you know the various states of the system, you can know which are the operating states and which are the failed states. So the system for the system to be operational, it should exist in one of those operational states. So if you know all the operating states of the system and their probabilities of the systems to exist in these states. So if you add up these probabilities, it gives you the reliability, it gives you the availability or the power supply. So in a way, this is an easy way to model the power system reliability. So therefore, we should know something about Markov model. So you have different states and transitions between different states. We'll see through some basic simple mathematics how to do that, and then we can move on. System behavior that varies randomly with time and space is known as a stochastic process. At one time you are in this state, at another time you are in another state, because some transition has happened. So the state is, there is transition which is happening in various states. So randomly with time and space. So that's a stochastic process. A stochastic process that meets the following requirements is a Markovian process, otherwise non-Markovian. So this is a bit of detailed mathematics, but it is just important to remember that we are basically looking at Markovian process. So here the system states must be identifiable. We are not looking at states which are not discrete, We are not looking at some continuous states or some kind of fuzzy states. We are system states which are identifiable and discrete. And there is this idea of lack of memory in Markovian models. That's the property. Future states are independent of all past states except the present state. For example, we are assuming that the system is operating, and is not in its early phase or wear out phase, and therefore it can fail only due to some random causes, due to some chance events. There can be a lightning, and there can be a breakdown of a distribution or a transmission line. So, and there can be some outages in the units, and these are assumed to be largely due to chance causes, due to random failures, and so on. So one random failure, the one failure would not imply what happened with respect to the earlier state. Now, irrespective of the states, the transitions can happen from one state to another. So that's called memoryless property, lack of memory, and so on. So this is just purely academic if you don't get bogged down too much into mathematics at the moment. But this is what is known as the memoryless property. And then stationary, probability of transition between two states is the same at all times. So the transition rates are same because they are affected by those failure rates and repair rates. So we assume them to be constant rates, and therefore those rates are to be same, which is largely true in a practical sense. Requirements 2 and 3 are met by systems with probability distributions characterized by a constant hazard rate. So you take exponential time to failure distribution, negative exponential. So they would basically have this constant failure rate or repair rate, which is characterized by what is generically called a constant hazard rate. So if you have discrete time or space, it's called a discrete Markov chain, a continuous time and discrete space. You can have discrete space, continuous time, or continuous time, continuous Markov process. So I'm going to give you some example of a discrete Markov chain. You have this is a two-state system. That means the system can either exist in state 1 or could exist in a state 2, and the probability of making this transition, chance of making this transition from state 1 to 2 is R. And the problem, you can say, some rate of transition which the system is able to make from 1 to 2, given that it is in state 1, what is the rate at which the transition can happen to move to state 2, and from state 2 to state 1, like you have the failure rates and the repair rates. But these are different, these you can say are the rates or the probabilities. So if this is the state of the system and the probability of existing in the same state, if it was in state 1, and to exist in the same state is half. Either it can exist in its own state or it can make a transition to another state. So if the probability of existing in its own state is half, so obviously the probability of making a transition to another state, in this case is 2, is also half. Now, likewise, from state 2, the probability of existing in its own state, given that it is in state 2, is 3/4, and therefore the probability that it can make a transition to state 1 from state 2, that is leaving state 2 and moving to state 1, is 0.25. So 25% chance and 75% chance remaining in the same state. So this is a Markov model for a state of the system which can exist in two states, 1 and 2, and the transitions from state 1 to state 2, or either staying in the same state or making a transition. These transition rates are known and the states are known as well. So what we are interested in figuring out, what is the probability that the system would exist either in state 1 or state 2, remaining in state 2 or remaining in state 1. So we can calculate them because it can make many transitions. You see, it can make a transition from 1 to 2, and then it can continue in the next instant of time, continue to remain in state 2, and then next instant of time it can remain in state 1, and then go back to state 2, and then go back to state 1, and then remain in state 1. So overall, in a steady state, if you look at it asymptotically, what would be the probability that the system would either remain in state 1 or state 2? See, you may be wondering in how does this help? But for example, this could be a working state, this could be a failed state. So if you can find out what would be the probability that the system would remain in working state, then that means you have found out the reliability or the availability of the supply system or the power system reliability. So that's the reason why we are basically looking at these Markov models and why we are trying to work on these models mathematically. So this is no big deal. This is no rocket science. You have probability of remaining in its own state half, therefore probability of making a transition is half. Probability of remaining in its own state 2 is 3/4, so probability of leaving a state is 1/4. So sum of these two probabilities is of course 1, but that's true. But then we want to find out the asymptotic in a steady state, what would be the probability that it remains in state 2 or state 1. So look at the chains. We mentioned about discrete Markov chains. So look at the chain. From 1, it can make a transition to state 1. And then again, it can make a transition to either state 1, state 2, or state 1. From 1, it could have made a transition to state 1 or state 2. Either of them are half. From 1, again, it can make a transition to 1 or 2. Either way, it is half. Okay. From 1 again to 1 or 2. So this is also half. From 1 again to 1 or 2. So you see, in first unit of time, it would remain, the probability is half. and after 2 units of time, it's half multiplied by half. At the first instance of time, half, and continues to remain so. So another half. So half multiplied by half. So if you follow this chain, you would end up with 1 by 16. You see, multiplied all of them. And then if you followed this chain from 1 to 1, 1 to 1, 1 to 1, and then 1 to 2, then you follow this part of the chain, keep multiplying these values, also remain 1 by 16. And then if you followed, for example, this chain, from 1 it could be in state 2, and then it could be in state 1, or it could be in state 2. So from 1 to remaining, to go to state 1 is 1 by 4, to remaining state 2 is 3 by 4. So if we followed this chain, then it is multiplication of these probabilities, half into half into half into 3 by 4. If you followed this chain, 1 to 1 to 1 to 2 to 1, then it's a multiplication of these probabilities, half into half into half into 1 by 4. So that's 1 by 32. This is 3 by 32. So if you look at all these possibilities, then you would, then either you would land up in state 1 or state 2. So those which are in state 1, you have the probabilities, 1 by 16, 1 by 32. Then again, you have 1 by 32. Then you have again 3 by 64 and 1 by 32 and so on. So if you add up all these probabilities, it gives you the probability that the system will remain asymptotically or in a steady state in state 1. And if you add up the probabilities that you get from these various chains, of remaining in state 2 at the 4th instant of time, then you get the probability of remaining in state 2. So state 1 at time interval 0, this is in 1, and at state 2 probability is 0. And after first interval of time, either it is in state 1 or state 2. So the probability is 50-50, 50-50. Likewise, time interval 2, time interval 2, the probability of remaining in 1 is 1 by 2 into 1 by 2. 1 by 2 multiplied by 1 upon 2 multiplied by 1 upon 2. To that, you need to add 1 upon 2 multiplied by 1 by 4. Okay, so in the second instant of time. So these are the only two possibilities in which it can remain in state 1 at the second instant of time. So you see, half into half plus half into 1 by 4. So that's 0.375. Likewise for state 2. Then at the third instant of time, you see it converges to from 0.375. Earlier it was 1, it moved to 0.5, then moved to 0.375, then it came to 0.344. Then at the 4th instant it came to 0.336, and then at the 5th instant it came to 0.334. And then likewise for state 2. So you see it's kind of converging. So this becomes, when you add up the two, obviously you should get 1, like this. 0.5 plus 0.5 is 1, 1 plus 0 is 1. So like that, in every case you would get 1. So eventually you will reach a steady state. This would become 0.334. It wouldn't change. It would change in much later decimal places, so it effectively doesn't change. So if you were to plot number of time intervals and probability, this is the probability of being in state 1, this is the probability of being in state 2. This is called asymptotic or steady state. Okay. So this was kind of discrete time and discrete space, units of time. But time can be continuous. We may be interested in discrete state, but continuous time. Discrete state, continuous time, Markov process. Okay. Time is continuous. Here, although we have made it distinct, discrete, that's just to show you by way of example that it reaches a steady state. But time is continuous because the transitions can happen at any time, not necessarily at units of time. And therefore, discrete time and continuous state. Now, transient behavior, time-dependent state probability depends on initial condition. Obviously, when you are trying to calculate the probability exactly, it depended on what was the previous state from which it is making a transition. As the number of time intervals increase, state probability tends to a constant value. So this is limiting state probability, asymptotic probability, or steady state probability. As the time increases, as the time tends to infinity, so to say, then the probability reaches a constant figure. Limiting state probability of ergodic system is independent of the initial condition. So it is independent of the initial condition. So if you are trying to find out the limiting state probability, it doesn't matter where it started from. What is important is where it ends. Ergodic system. Every state of a system can be reached from every other state directly or through intermediate states. Okay. So here, for example, you could reach state 1 from state 2, isn't it? If it recovers, you could reach here, or from 1 you could reach 2. So 1 it could make a transition to. So that's kind of ergodic. Every state of a system can be reached from every other state directly or through intermediate states. Systems with absorbing states are not ergodic. For example, if this transition was not there, for example, from state 2 to state 1, that means this is an absorbing state. That means once a transition has happened from state 1 to 2, it's never going to come back to state 1 if this transition was not there. So then it would be systems with absorbing states are not ergodic. Absorbing state, a state once entered cannot be left. Some basic jargons that you should know. In every discipline, there'll be some technical jargons with which you should be familiar. These are some things which you should understand with respect to Markov models. So evaluation procedure using Markov model, develop Markov model for the component, evaluate state probability, time dependent or limiting state using, this is limiting state in the sense that the time, if the number of time intervals increase, that means unlimited, that means asymptotic, that means time t tends to infinity. Time dependent or limiting state. Evaluate state problem. Tree diagram impractical for large systems or a large number of time intervals. This is what is a tree diagram, from one state to another, so if this is just a two-state problem. We are trying to model this, and therefore we found it easy. Imagine if there are some 10 states, 12 states. Is it feasible to do this kind of thing, to figure out the state probabilities? No, it is definitely not possible. And therefore, there are some other techniques by which the state probabilities, the bottom line is that we need to find out the state probabilities. For finding out these state probabilities, you need this, what is known as the stochastic transitional probability matrix. Okay. So we are not going to use this tree diagram, which was just meant for illustration, and it's impractical for large systems. And therefore, we are going to use some other method to find out state probabilities. This tree diagram was used to find out the state probabilities. There are only two states of the system, 1 and 2, but you have multiple states of the system. So you need to find out the probability of those states. So tree diagram is not useful any longer. So we use a different method in which we need to develop what is known as the stochastic transitional probability matrix, STPM. So stochastic transitional probability matrix. So it's a kind of square matrix, from a particular state to another state. So these are nodes. We are moving from state 1 to 1, 1 to 2, 1 to 3, but you have multiple states from nodes towards the nodes. So from state 2 to state 1, state 2 to 2, state 2 to n, state 2 to 4, state 2 to 5. Likewise, from one node to another. What are the probabilities of transition? You remember here we had these probabilities of transitions. You see, these are the probabilities of transition from 1 to 2, 2 to 1, 1 to 1, 2 to 2. So it's a 2 by 2 matrix, isn't it? So likewise, you can have a matrix for a system with n states. So 1 to 1, 1 to 2, 1 to n, this transition matrix. Sum of probabilities in each row must be unity. You remember, we saw that the sum of these two probabilities were 1. One probability of remaining in state 2, remaining in state 2 or leaving state 2. Either it can remain in its own state or move to state 1. So 3 by 4 plus 1 by 4 was 1. So likewise, these are some fundamentals which you should know. Sum of probabilities in each row must be unity. Okay. State probabilities after n intervals. You remember, there we were counting the intervals, time intervals, but now we are saying that time is continuous. So, but in this kind of discrete situation, you need to keep multiplying those probabilities. You saw that we multiplied those probabilities half into half into half to reach the end of the chain, and then we could find out the probabilities, the states. So the initial probabilities multiplied by the probabilities of transition, and then it gives you the probability of being in that state. Okay, maybe n transitions has happened, so probability of being in that state. So this is initial probability vector, and then this is the probability of being in that state after n intervals. So limiting, we'll get back to these details a little later. So hold on your breath, don't panic. It's just that it tells you after n intervals what would be the probability. Now, just as in the previous case, we figured out after n intervals, 1, 2, 3, this is the fourth interval of time, it was 116. We simply multiplied the probability. So after 4 intervals, it could be in this state also. First interval, second interval, third interval, and in the fourth interval makes a transition from 1 to 2. So it becomes 1 by 16. So you have various chains, and transitions. So likewise, from the initial state, the chain multiplication, and then the initial state in P0. So multiply that and get the probability after n intervals. We'll come to that a little more in detail. Then you'll be able to understand and appreciate. So limiting state probabilities are repeated multiplications of P until resulting P does not change with further implications. So after you keep changing, repeated multiplications, and you remember, after we were trying to multiply these chains and sum them up, and then we found that this number doesn't change. This changed to 0.336, it has changed to 334. You move over to 6th time interval, it will remain the same. 7th time interval, it would remain the same. So it's kind of reached a steady state, reached a steady state. So after that, any further multiplications, and additions, it's not going to change. So, so it simply means that alpha is the limiting probability vector. So you multiply that with P, we'll get to these details, don't worry. So it doesn't change any further, and therefore that's the limiting state probability, and that is what we were interested in. You saw that we were interested in finding out what was P1 and P2, those two states, limiting state probabilities. We arrived at 0.334 and 0.666. They were not changing any further. If you went to 6th interval of time, or 7th interval, or 8th interval of time, or 10th interval of time, they remained the same. So that's the limiting probability vector. Okay, so you can look at this simple example problem. Can take this simple example and also work it out, will remain come to the same. So likewise, we try and work out and see how these ideas can be used for finding out the limiting state probabilities. Now You remember this idea of absorbing state? We mentioned about ergodic and non-ergodic, so on. So absorbing state is a system state which once you enter cannot be left until the system starts a new mission. Example, failure states in mission-oriented systems. Once the system has failed, there is no question of it being launched for yet another mission. It has failed, it has not been able to do its job. So that's a kind of, there is no repair, no replacement. Fire a missile, either hits and blows up the target or it doesn't. So the chapter closes there. So these are mission-oriented systems. So there is no repair, no replacement, no restoration. It's not going to come back into its operational state again. So need to evaluate how many time intervals does the system operate on average before entering the absorbing state. So you can define working state and failed state. Failed state could be an absorbing state, from which no further repair replacement is possible. You can have states in which some repair replacement is possible, which could be kind of degraded states, but you can also have states in which no repair replacement is possible, and those are failed states. So those are absorbing states. So we need to find out this matrix N, this matrix N, and that would help you in trying to find out the limiting state probabilities. So we'll be able to do that. You can see that. So this is basically an identity matrix, and this is a truncated matrix. So let's look at an example like this. For example, you could have 3 states of a system in which there is state 1 can make a transition to state 2. Okay, and since there is no transition, it cannot make any transition to state 3. It's not a bidirectional arrow, so it just makes a transition to state 2, but it could remain in its own state also. 1 by 4 means it could remain in 3 by 4. Likewise, from 2 there is no it could make transition to state 3, and then it could remain either in its own state or make a transition to state 1, or it could go back to state 2. Okay, so these various combinations are possible. So if transition from state 3 to state 1 was possible with a transition probability of 1 by 3, then this is not an absorbing state. But for example, if this is the state of the system and you say that it is an absorbing state, that means there is no way by which you can reach 1. Even if you move from state 3 to state 2, there is no way by which you can move to state 1. And from state 3 to direct 1, if this was not possible, then this would have been an absorbing state. Okay, so we look at those identity matrix, truncated matrix, and find out how we can calculate these limit state probabilities. Now, continuous Markov process. Many systems exist continuously in a state until a transition takes it to another state. So you can have discrete state, but continuous in time. So discrete state, continuous time. Requirement for Markov process: lack of memory, constant hazard rate. This is what we have seen, either in terms of failure or repair. So transition rate, number of failures of component in a given period of time divided by the total period of time. The number of total failures, the number of failures happening over a period of time, failure rate. Number of repairs in a given period of time, total period of time that the component was under repair. Okay, so that's the repair rate. Rate at which repairs are happening, rate at which failures are happening. Total period of time the component was under repair, and the number of repairs that have happened. Number of failures that have happened, total of time for which it was operating. So you have failure rate, repair rate. And the reciprocal of these rates is what is mean time to failure and mean time to repair. This is repair rate, this is failure. Reciprocal is average time to repair, this is average time to failure. Okay. State space methods, principles. Consider a system made up of n components where each component has a finite number of operating and failed states. So Obviously, if there are n components, there will be many states which are operating state. There will be many states which are failed state. Obviously, if there are n components, if all of them are operating, it is an operating state. If all of them are failed state, that's a failed state. So one obvious operating state and failed state is clearly known, but not all. If some of the components are failed, it could be operating state. It could also be a failed state. We do not know. It depends on uh, which components have failed or which components are working. So, but all of them are working state, and all of them have failed state. System is considered repairable. The components are repaired after a failure is detected. System has two types of states, typical, operating states and failed states. These are states where the system function is performed, although some of the components may have failed. A fully operational state is a state where no component has failed. There are states where the system function is no longer fulfilled. That's a failed state. One or more of the system components have failed. So we need to solve this. Ultimately, we are trying to find out what is the steady state probability, limiting state probabilities. So we are trying to use the state space methods, SSM methods. Okay. Step 2, list all possible transitions between different states and identify the causes of all transitions. So you have multiple states of the system, transitions happening between one state and another. So you can list out all the possible transitions from state 1 to 2, state 1 to 3, state 1 to 4, state 2 to 1, state 2 to 2, state 2 to 3, state 2 to 4, 3 to 1, 3 to 2, 3 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 1, 4 to 2, 4 to 3, 4 to 4. So in all, for example, if it is a 4 state, you get a 4 by 4 matrix of transition, transition matrix. So calculating the probabilities of being in different states during a certain period in the life of a system or calculate their dependability characteristic. So of course, you need these rates, transition rates. So for which either you know them directly or you know the MTTF, MTTR, and then you can obviously find out what are the failure rates and repair rates and so on. So let's take a very simple problem in which you have a working state and a failed state, working state and a failed state. So good and bad. And this is the failure rate, time dependent failure rate. So this transition is happening from good to bad. It has failed and it goes into bad state. Something has failed and it went into a bad state. If it is not repairable, it remains so. This becomes an absorbing state. But in this case, it has failed, it went into this state in which it is failed, but then repair recovery is possible. Not all states are repairable, but in this particular case, this is repairable, and therefore it goes back to operational state. So a two-way transition, bidirectional. So if I have to model this with respect to state and time, it's good for some time and then continues to remain bad always. In this case, it is up for some time and then goes bad because it makes a transition to a bad state, down state. It remains down for some time and then it gets repaired and then it's back to up state. And it remains up for some time and then again down for some time. Then this cycle continues, up and down it continues. So this is a state time representation for these two different models. This refers to reliability, this refers to availability. Availability is operational readiness. When you need it, it should be ready. So when for it to be ready, if it was down earlier, it should have been repaired. So that's availability. On demand, it should be available. On demand, it should be ready for operation. And once it begins to operate, it should continue to remain operating, continue to remain operational. That's reliability. So reliability is just state probability. When it is good, it's reliable. Failed means unreliable, not reliable, unreliability. This is, if it is two-way, then this is availability and this is unavailability. If it is two-way, that means it can be repaired. So you are interested in finding out the steady state probability, which is the availability, and then this is unavailability. You can have arbitrary transitions, which can be these, for example, these are the multiple states in which the system can exist. This is working state because all is okay. This is a state in which some of them have failed, but it's a failed state of the system. This is also a failed state of the system. And then there are other states of the system. So they are supposed to be good. Something has failed, it is down, but not completely down. So the system is working. Here also something is working. Here also something is working. And these states have been arrived because some transitions have happened from the perfect okay state. So two-way transitions can happen. You can classify some of the states as working and some of them as not working. So probability of these states, if we add them up, it gives the reliability or the availability. This gives you the unreliability or the unavailability. Okay, these are non-terminal states, these are terminal states, absorbing states. Once you reach these states, then you cannot leave this state. You see, there is no bidirectional, there is no two-way. So from failed state, you cannot go back to any of these previous states. Once you are in this state, you remain to continue in this state. So Markov process, trying to figure out the steady state probabilities, that's quite a bit of involved mathematics. So I'll not confuse you any further by trying to tell you about all these notations. These notations are no big deal. This is a transition from state I to state J. So being in state I, the probability is Pi, and then when you move to state J, the probability after time interval delta t, after a small time interval, we are looking at continuous time, so transitions can happen at any time. Therefore, if you look at continuous time and discrete states, so then transitions can happen at any time. So you multiply them and you get the state probabilities after a time interval delta t. So okay, so these transitions have already been understood, and it can be defined in terms of the probabilities and the time interval during which these transitions happen. It is assumed that the probability of two or more transitions occurring simultaneously is negligible in general. So in that small interval of time, there is only a single transition can happen, and therefore we need not have to think about the other possibilities. So we are not looking much more into the mathematics of it. We can straight away come to two-state problem which doesn't have an absorbing state. For example, it is in a state up. It is in a state up, and this is a state failed state. So from 1 to 2, there is a transition, some failure rate. And from 2 to 1, there is a transition, which is a repair rate. The up state, down state. Down means failed state. So from fail to up, it has to be a repair rate. From up state to failed state, it has to be a failure rate. So obviously, you look at the transitions. The transition probability, in that interval delta t, because it can happen at any time, is lambda 1 to delta t. Then the probability of making a transition to state 2, given that it was in state 1, is lambda 1 to delta t. Therefore, the probability of remaining in its own state, is 1 minus. Either it can make a transition to state 2, or it can remain in its own state. Some of those two probabilities have to be 1. So if this is lambda 1 to delta t, then this has to be 1 minus lambda 2 delta t. Likewise, from state 2 to state 1, this is lambda 2 1. Lambda 2 1 means mu, repair rate, in this particular case. But generically, for example, here we have mentioned that failure rate and repair rate. But generically, if you don't want to define them, just say lambda 2. So lambda 2 1 delta t, transition from state 2 to state 1, provided it was in state 2. And therefore, the probability of remaining in state 2 is 1 minus lambda 2 delta 1. So we are trying to, what are we trying to do now? We are trying to find out what is the limit state probability, asymptotic probability. steady state probability of state 1 and state 2. What is it that it would help us? Because it would tell us what would be this is a repairable system. You see, there's a failure rate and there is a repair rate. Once it has failed, it can be repaired and brought back to state 1. So if you can find out the limit state probability P1, you can know the availability, in terms of failure rate and repair rate. And this is the unavailability. So, or you can say that you know the reliability and unreliability. So this is just a two-state problem. You can have a multiple-state problem also. You can find out the reliability and availability. We are trying to solve that. You can solve it by writing those equations. At time interval, at time t, if it could have been either in state 1 or it could have been in state 2. And for it to continue to remain in state 1 after the lapse of time delta t, either it could have been earlier in state 1 or state 2. So that's what it says. So if it was in state 1 and it continues to remain so in state 1 after the lapse of time delta t. So 1 minus lambda 1 to delta t, this continues to remain so. And it was in state 1. Or it could have been in state 2 and made a transition from state 2 to state 1. So it was in state 2 and made a transition to state 1 after delta t. So the probability of remaining in state 1 at time t plus delta t. So this is the expression for probability of remaining in state 1 at time t plus delta t, provided at time t it was either in 1 or 2. Probability of remaining in state 2 at time t plus delta t, that is after a small interval of time, provided it was in state 1 or 2 at time t. Because we are assuming continuous time, it's not discrete time, therefore we are using this delta t. So if we rearrange, then what you get is, as you want t to be continuous, then time to be continuous, then delta t if you tend to 0, so you get a kind of differential equation, first order differential equation. See, first order differential equation. First order differential equation. And if you solve them, if you solve this differential equation, if you want to solve them, this differential equation, can either organize it in the form of matrix, two variables P1 and P2, and therefore this transition matrix, you remember these two equations? So you can separate out these coefficients, and then these are the variables, and you can represent it in this form. This will be a general form. So this is A, matrix A is known as the stochastic transition matrix. This is known as the stochastic transition matrix. And this is at time t, and this is at time t plus delta t, converted into the differential. We started with time t plus delta t, you remember, then converted it into a differential equation. So when you convert it into a differential equation, you can then represent the transition matrix separately. So all you need to do is to find out the stochastic transition matrix, and then you know the probabilities at yet another interval of time, at another time, at time t, and then you want to find out at yet another time what would be the probability. So for that, you need to know the stochastic transition matrix. Now, a little bit about these properties of this transition matrix. So as you can see clearly that it's a square matrix of the order n by n, where n is the number of states in the Markovian model. Aij is the transition rate from state I to state j. So as you can see, if you sum them up, in the rows, it gives you 0, minus lambda plus lambda 0, mu plus minus mu 0. Is the negative of the summation of the transition rates from state I to all other states. So what happens is, if you are moving from state 1 to 1, see, because we moved these terms to the other side, this 1 which was there, in the self transition has disappeared. So when you move from the same state to from one state to the same state, then you have a negative. Transition rate. Likewise, from state 2 to state 2, you get minus mu. Then from state 1 to 2 lambda, then from state 2 to state 1 mu. So this is a stochastic transition matrix. So our Markov process is said to be homogeneous when the failure and repair rates are constant. When the initial distribution Pi is known, that is P10 and P20 are known, true solutions can be found out. And then you can use Laplace transforms to find out solutions to those differential equations. These are just first order differential equation, no big deal. Or you can discretize it and then find out or calculate the eigenvalues, the matrix. So I will just see how some solutions can happen. So using Laplace transforms as well. So Laplace transform of a constant and then t to the power n. So that's factorial n divided by s to the power n plus 1. These are Laplace transforms, which are something like logarithms. You apply it and then it simplifies some high powers into multiplication and division. So likewise, these differential equations, you apply Laplace transforms and it helps you to transform into some linear expressions, which makes it easy to solve. So you have e to the power at, which Laplace transform is 1 by s minus a. Likewise, Laplace of t to the power n. So probably these things. And Laplace of a differential, Laplace of a differential or Laplace of a simple function is, instead of t, you move to s domain. And if it is a differential, you have a s of fs. If it is an integral, then it becomes fs over s. Okay, so differential, integral, constant, power n, and exponential. So these are the only expressions of Laplace typically which you will be using. So all I'm trying to do now is to solve this differential equation. Why am I trying to solve this differential equation? Because I can find out what are the state probabilities of remaining in state 1 and state 2. What kind of state probabilities am I trying to find out? The limiting state probabilities, the steady state, the asymptotic probabilities. So those are the probabilities that I'm trying to figure out. So I apply Laplace on both the sides, just as you apply logarithms, you remember? So these are the two differential equations, and I apply Laplace transform on both the sides. So I convert it into some kind of linear equation. The P1 of t reduces to P1 of s and differential, so s comes here. And then this is the initial condition, you remember. So this is a differential of a function, and I take a Laplace. So s of s minus the initial condition of the function. So likewise, this is the derivative function, dp1 by dt, mu p2t minus lambda p1t. So I take the derivative. So that's sp1s, sp1s, and minus the initial condition. And the other side was simple, functions. So from P1t, it moves to S domain. So minus lambda P1s plus mu P2s. Likewise, the initial condition. What is initial condition? That means at time t is equal to 0, what was the probability of state 1? State 1 is working state. At time t is equal to 0, the assumption is that it's in working state, isn't it? So therefore, P1 of 0 at time to begin with is 1. The probability is 1. So P10 is 1. Okay. So now you have a linear equation. Now you need to solve this linear equation and find out what is P1s and P2s. So in this particular case, it's easy to solve for P2s, and then P2s you get in terms of P1s, and then you substitute in the previous expression, and you get an expression for P1s. So now you have P1s you know. So you are in S domain, but you need to go back to T domain because you are interested in the steady state probability. So if you simplify this, you get 1 divided by this whole expression, and then you can resolve it into partial fractions. So if you resolve it into partial fractions and then find out the constants A and B, and then substitute these constants, so you get resolved into partial fraction. So what you have been able to do, this simple function which you had, this simple function that you had, you have now resolved into partial fractions. So just as you used logarithms to solve some difficult power calculations, you remember? So you finally took an antilog, so you take an inverse Laplace transform as well. So when you take an inverse Laplace transform, for example, you remember Laplace of a constant was all divided by S. So when you take an inverse Laplace, which has 1 by S, so this simply becomes that constant. And likewise, you remember e to the power minus something was, you remember? E to the power at was 1 upon S minus A. That's the Laplace of an exponential. So also you get inverse. If you take an inverse, you get e to the power minus mu plus lambda t. Okay. So you have the steady state, you have the time dependent expression for state 1 probability. Likewise, you can figure out what is the probability of remaining in state 2. You take the Laplace, inverse Laplace, and then you end up with this. So these are time-dependent expressions of the probability of the 2 states. That's what we started with. We were interested in the probabilities of the 2 states, but here we have time-dependent probability, but we are interested in steady-state probability. What is steady-state probability? That means as time tends to infinity, asymptotically, steady state, limiting state. What is the problem? So this is no big deal. You make time t tends to infinity. Now, if you make time t tend to infinity, then this becomes 0, isn't it? All you are left is with this. All you are left with this. So steady state probability for P1 when t tends to infinity asymptotically, then it's mu by mu plus lambda. For P2 t, that's the failed state. This is the working state. This is the failed good state, bad state. So the good state is mu by mu plus lambda. Mu is the repair rate. Lambda is the failure rate. What is failure rate? Reciprocal of mean time to failure. What is repair rate? Reciprocal of mean time to repair. So if you substitute this, you get the probabilities. And if you substitute t tending to infinity, you get the limit state probabilities. See, if you have time t tending to infinity, you get the limit state probabilities, p1 infinity and p2 infinity. So you can also write down as p1 infinity and p2 infinity. Now it's only a matter of notation. So these are steady state probabilities or asymptotic probabilities. But you may be thinking, just to find out some simple solution, we have gone through so much of exercise, trying to formulate the differential equation, take the Laplace transform, simplify into a linear equation, resolve them, then do partial fraction, then take the inverse, and then do steady state analysis. So such a complex thing to find some simple answers. Aren't there any shortcuts to it? Yes, there is. Now, what we assume that at steady state, these probabilities are constant. At steady state, these probabilities are constant. Okay. So as probabilities tend to be constant with respect to time, as time t tends to infinity, the vector of the differential probability becomes a null vector. So let us look at these differential equations that we devised. You remember these differential equations that we got? So let us say that time is at infinity, is at a very large value, and therefore there is a steady state value. Therefore, there is no change in the probability. It's constant. So if it is constant, then this dp by dt, either for one or two, both become zero. Rate of change of a constant is zero. So they become zero. So you are now left with these two simple equations, no differential equation, if you are just looking at steady state values. Remember? So you have now zeros and you have this simple expression. So, but you can see that they'll just resolve into the same, you multiply it by minus, you get this expression. So you have only one equation and you can't solve it. So, but then you also know that at any given point in time, either the system can be in state 1 or state 2. So that means the sum of these probabilities is going to be 1. So at time t tending to infinity, asymptotically, sum of these two probabilities is going to be 1. So you have p1 plus p2 is equal to 1. So if you take one of these equations and this equation, now you have two linear equations and two unknowns, p1 and p2. So if you solve them, you get p1 steady state and p2 steady state. So you have mu by mu plus lambda, and p2 is lambda by lambda plus mu. Okay, so now we have found out a way by which you can find out the steady state probabilities if you have a multi-state problem. Discrete state, continuous time problem. You know the transitions, you know the states, and you want to find out what are the probabilities, steady state probabilities, those states. You are interested in those steady states because you want to know the reliability or availability, which is the working state probabilities. So if you sum up all the probability of those states which are there in the working state space, then you get these probabilities. So if you had a continuous time expression, for example, we found out this continuous time expression. So if it is a two-state problem, then this refers to availability. So you can plot, availability. You remember this expression? Instead of P1T, now we are writing AT, availability. This is the expression. And at time t tend to infinity, what happens? This term comes to zero. So you are simply left with this. So this is a steady state availability. Now, reliability, what happens? Reliability, what happens? There is no repair, obviously. That means it's an absorbing state. It's mission-oriented system. So that means either the mission is achieved or not achieved. There is no repair. There is no repair. So if it is no repair, then mu is 0. So this becomes 0. So this is 0. So it is lambda is 1. So you are just left with e minus lambda t. So if mu is 0, then this is the curve. This is the reliability for a two-state system, and this is availability for a two-state system. That means bidirectional, failure rate and repair rate. This is only failure rate. There is no repair rate. Okay, so in the limiting state, mu by lambda plus mu is the limiting state availability, and therefore the unavailability. The unavailability. Unavailability means what? If this is the limiting state availability, unavailability will be lambda by lambda plus mu. How do you find out the unavailability? You take 1 minus this, 1 minus mu by lambda plus mu. This is a steady state availability. You want to find out the unavailability. 1 minus mu by lambda plus mu. So you get lambda by lambda plus mu. So this is the availability, this is the unavailability. Okay, so we are in a position to find out the continuous time expressions for the probabilities, and we are also able to find out the limit state probabilities. The next is state frequencies and durations. So any questions with respect to the Markov model? So probably we can begin that tomorrow, state frequencies and durations. That will take time. Does anybody have any questions? They just have a few minutes. Anybody have any questions?
Sir, good evening, sir.
Good
I
evening.
have one small question, sir. Like steady state stabilities we will use for some particular application, and maybe time dependent probabilities also we will use for some particular application. Like, is there any specific applications defined where we can have only steady state, or we can use time dependent? Means like we have a formula already calculated, so we know for different
So
time instant also.
in almost all reliability and especially power system reliability calculation use these steady state probabilities only.
Okay, sir. Okay.
We use only these steady state probabilities because we are only looking at long-term values. We are not looking at short-term values. You see, the availability is to start with it was 1, and then it has gradually reduced, but in a very short time it reached a steady state, and then it continues to remain in a steady state. So there is very little point in discussing the short-term values, short-term states, transitions. So on a long term, what would be the availability? Unavailability is what is known in the power system reliability parlance as the outage, post-outage rate. Post-outage rate essentially means unavailability, means steady state unavailability, post-outage rate. Post-outage rate of various components, including generators and so on. So that means unavailability, and that means steady state unavailability. That is lambda by mu plus lambda. In power system reliability, we are concerned more about outages and unavailabilities rather than availabilities. Although we would like to talk about reliability and availabilities, but most of the time we are worried about unavailability and unreliabilities. So it is these unavailability that we are looking at, and the technical term which is used, the technical jargon which is used is post-outage rate. Post-outage rate means unavailability. So post-outage rate of either a generating unit or a transmission line or a distribution connection, for everything we use post-outage rate. That's unavailable. And we do not use these time-dependent expressions. They are merely used to calculate these. They are merely used to calculate the steady-state expressions. The ultimate goal is to calculate the limiting state. Mathematically, it is of course interesting to know how to solve them and what is the expression, time-dependent expression, and so on.
Sir, then in that case means time dependency won't have any impact on our reliability and availability because we need to consider only steady state value.
The reason why we are looking at steady state is because most of the equipments, most of the units, most of the components are either repairable or replaceable. Okay, repairable or replaceable. So if they are repairable or replaceable, that means they can fail and yet they can be repaired, maintained, replaced, and so on. So we are looking at steady state values only. We are looking only at steady state values in terms of it can go through several cycles of failure and repair, but eventually that would reach a steady state. When we say in a very short time, there could be a few cycles, but over a considerable length of time, it would have a steady value. It would have a steady value, which is easy to work with. And because we are also calculating averages, mean values, and so on, so we would prefer to use these steady state and limiting state values only.
Okay, sir. I got maybe later I'll ask like some small doubts
Yeah,
are there.
I think it has just begun. So
Yes,
as
sir.
we move on, we move to all kinds of models and much more complex models than what we have seen. Then many of these things will get very clear. You can see this kind of model, but there is nothing as yet. You'll come across all kinds of different kinds of models You see, so you'll get to understand why we are worried only about steady state and not worried about other kinds of probabilities which are time dependent. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay. Sir, one
Yeah.
more small question, sir. Like, will you like only Marco you will discuss, or maybe Monte Carlo also you will discuss, sir? Technique, Monte Carlo technique also, I
I
think.
think that, see, the thing is, it's also a question of racing against time. So, what can be done is, for example, I can quickly gloss over it and I can
Okay.
just say that, okay, you do some Markovian analysis, arrive at that. Otherwise, I can go a little in detail, which would, of course, require time.
Yes.
So if I'm going to spend more time over it, Monte Carlo simulation is no big deal. You
Yes.
have some random numbers generate and then calculate the probabilities of those states that you can do it, and there are programs to do that. But I think the fundamentals are very important, and there are some things which you can. There are some things which you definitely need to understand in very great detail. There are some things which, even though we may not be able to address because the time is very limited, but you can easily read it up. It's not a big deal. So let's see if there is enough time we can go through it, but I doubt, because we have too many things on hand to do, and you need to know all the details, at least the initial details, to understand a little more elaborately, so that you can move ahead. So let's see if time permits, and if everything falls in place, then we can touch upon Monte Carlo simulation as well.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Is there anything else?